but then we are now all set to start the next session of the day's proceedings, which is the first session after lunch, and that is on unlocking Northeast India's potential. So our speakers are Dr. Manish Torangbam, Director, Kalinga Institute of Indo-Pacific Studies; Mr. David Kire, OSD, Investment and Development Authority of Nagaland, Government of Nagaland; Mr. Probir Banerjee, co-founder and managing member, Balipara Foundation, and CEO, Reverse Journeys and Bungalows and Globally Managed Services. Can I request all of you to please come up on the dais? Dr. Manish, Mr. David Kire, and Mr. Probir Banerjee. Kindly come up on the dais. And as all of you are already aware that Mr. Bes Borua had faced an accident, and that's the reason why he could not travel. He has already joined us virtually. He will be moderating the session. So, sir, we are all set from here. If you could kindly take the proceedings forward for the session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, Dr. Manish Turangbam, Mr. David Kire, and Prabir Banerjee. Welcome to this session. We'll be talking about the potential of the Northeast and what we can do to drive investment and to drive economic progress in this region. I think the order of speakers is Dr. Manish Turangbam, and then David Kire, and last but not least, Prabir Banerjee. So I would request all of you to limit your talks, your presentations to around 7 minutes. Sambit, is that okay? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
That's fine. Yeah.
Right. Now I can hear you. So we start with Dr. Monish Turangbam. Did I get the pronunciation of your name right?
That's perfect, sir.
All right. Okay. So.
Thank you. So I'll speak from here itself without going
yes,
to the...
Yes. You're most welcome to speak from there. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, first of all, to BCC&I and Rising Asia Foundation for giving a rookie academic like me to speak among very experienced hands on the region. Almost all the things have been said, but I'll try to sort of share my thoughts in the next 7 minutes. And coming from more of a security and geopolitical perspective, I'll focus myself on that so that I don't repeat things that have been said already. It's an understatement, I think, to say that we pass through in a time of great geopolitical tumult and turmoil. And I think I'll follow through from what Professor Mukherjee had pointed out in the previous session as some kind of a provocation about the political climate and its impact on the kind of vision that we have for development of the Northeast region, the connectivity projects, infrastructure, and also the youth employment and development that has been spoken about quite at length in the previous sessions. I think one of the things about the turmoil and tumult that we are talking about is also that we live in a region, so to say, where the role of, if I may call it, subnational actors, they may be violent, non-violent, many of them are violent, are very important in terms of how the so-called connectivity projects play out, and if we get the kind of outcomes that we envision from those projects. Two areas I think Mr. Bes Borua had mentioned in the beginning, in his previous session, was the case of Myanmar and Bangladesh. Two countries, two neighboring countries without which we cannot totally implement and envision an Act policy. We cannot envision sub-regional growth and development that we kept talking about. So I think, you know, I was trained to look more at great power politics and geopolitics in a broader region that is the Indo-Pacific. But my association with a couple of think tanks from the region like Asian Confluence over the years have pushed me to look at the knock-on effects of geopolitical competition in the sub-region. So that's where I'm coming to in terms of how do we see this region. I think it's also important that as we talk about the rise of the East, to look at the role, disruptive or otherwise, that are inevitably played by the West or extra-regional powers, if I may say so. Mahathir Mohamad, the Malaysian leader, once said that he wanted to build a caucus of the Caucasians, the caucus of the Asians without the Caucasians. I don't know if that is really feasible in the sense if we look at the role of the West, specifically like the United States, in how things are playing out in our region, in the sub-region that we are talking about, how US-China competition plays out, not directly, maybe indirectly in how they impact the narratives of cooperation in the sub-region. Right? When we talk of Indo-Pacific, we often talk of conflictual geopolitical hotspots like the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, and then we try to borrow the narrative of there, and then we almost kill the narratives of cooperation and the incentives of cooperation in the sub-regions. So sub-regionalization, I think, is inherently something that we at the Kalinga Institute of Indo-Pacific Studies also try to do, which is to look at how South Asians look at Indo-Pacific, how Southeast Asians look at Indo-Pacific, and see if there are convergences and what are the divergences. Like, is there any murmurs of divergence within the ASEAN countries? Do they see the Quad and AUKUS as something that undermines ASEAN centrality? How South Asians look at Indo-Pacific, and I think we are trying to figure out the prospects of cooperation in this sub-region in the broader context of the Global South and the Indo-Pacific. So, without wasting too much time, I will then jump right across into 2 or 3 propositions that I want to make. One is coming from, primarily from a security and geopolitical point of view, which is what I practice. I think there is need for more, impetus given on national security studies from within the region of the North. And I think there is a big gap there. There's a big lacuna there. There are a lot of security studies departments which are being established in central universities and state universities in the Northeast. But I think we need to revisit them in terms of, the curriculum and the real world impact, the policy impact of the kind of studies which are coming out with more Northeastern scholars and more Northeastern analysts having more skin in the game when it looks at the security perspective in the region. I think there
you have to move.
1 minute.
Doctor, you have just
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah, sure. Second, I think there needs to be much more focus on, again, having more Track 2 dialogues and Track 1.5 dialogues with the sub-region, with more representations from within the region of the Northeast to look at finding the pathways through which we can really navigate the political convergence which are impacting the kind of vision that we have for Northeast. The role of partnerships is very important. The Japanese embassy is sitting here. Koreans are paying a lot of importance to the Northeast. What are the things that we can take out from these partnerships? Trusted technologies are very important. And I think we stand at the cusp of building a new technological ecosystem in the sub-region where youth of the Northeast can play a more important role, not only in being a part of the new technologies, but having a part in building what I call as trusted technologies. Last but not the least, there is a lot of talks going on about labor mobility agreements with East Asian countries. We have one with Japan, we have one with Taiwan. And I think it gives a lot of opportunities for youth from the Northeast to see the kind of employment opportunities that are there in cross-border employment opportunities, and we can put more impetus on the labor mobility pacts which are being discussed and negotiated as we speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manish. Uh, what you talked about is very, very important. And I think that, our region, the northeastern region, some of the most important aspects of the social aspects, and you touched upon it. And at the end, I think you gave some pointers of directions in which we can move to increase, to the 3 points that you mentioned, may be the way forward. Now, I would call upon Mr. David Kire to uh, give a talk. You can either go to the lectern or okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, BCCI. Thank you, Rising Asia, for this time. We had thought of participating as listeners, but to our surprise, we were asked to give a small presentation. So for that, I'm thankful to the organizers. I'll go straight into my talk due to constraint of time. So the area of Northeast states collectively is smaller than many of the bigger states, but it has one of the longest international borders touching Bangladesh, Myanmar, China, Bhutan, and Nepal. So this by itself is an opportunity for many people to come and see the place and think of investments. I'll be talking about investments only. So keeping aside all the general talk, let us go into a few activities that can really add to the growth and development of the region, especially the region and the state that I'm from, Nagaland. So we have this Look East Act East policy of the Government of India, which is aimed at accelerating the economic growth of the eastern states. But then when we look at this, we also had a look at ourselves. And we find that a lot of work needs to be done before thinking of cross-border trades with neighboring countries. This is especially true for Nagaland. Although we have a very long border with Myanmar, there is still no road connectivity on the Myanmar side. Roads are yet to be constructed. So cross-border trade is something that we cannot think of right now. It's like hitting a wall. Therefore, for us, we have to look west. Think west, act west. Open up our trade with the rest of the country. And this will also help our people to be prepared for a day when situation improves in Myanmar, and then they can start cross-border trade with our neighboring countries. So towards this end, we need to start working on what we have and what we can do. So looking at this, agricultural activities comes to my mind. More than 60% of the population is dependent on agriculture. The concept of commercial cultivation of crops is still very new to the people. They grow just enough for their own consumption, and a little extra is sent to the local market. Given that the soil, the climate, and abundant rainfall are all very important for agricultural activities, and these are available always throughout the year, there's a huge scope to increase agriculture and horticulture produce for export to the rest of the country. Biggest hurdle right now we are facing is an absence of an organized market. So I'll give you a few examples. We have heard about millet. Now this is grown extensively in the interior districts. So our state has signed an MOU with a company that will purchase all the millet grown in the state at a price which is acceptable to both the parties, the farmers and the companies. So we have a rare variety of black rice, which is again in very high demand. Production cannot keep pace with the demand. Given the right incentives, the farmers can grow this rice extensively for export. Similarly, the Naga king chili is known all over the world. It is considered the hottest chili. Scientists are experimenting to use this chili for industrial purpose. This alone shows a huge potential. In horticulture, we have abundant production of pineapple and oranges, which are used in the cottage industries for making juice. More areas are coming under these fruits, but the process can be accelerated again if the big players come in, give us a ready market, and help the farmers to grow more. Apart from this, we have a tree tomato. This is GI tag. This tomato has a unique taste, and it is being sold in the malls, in the metros, at more than 20 times the price that is being sold in our state. Similarly, a cucumber, unique only to Nagaland, is in big demand in the high-end restaurants and hotels for using for the salad preparations. These are just a few examples of the unique variety of agricultural and horticultural produce of the state. Then again, we have started growing fruits which we have never heard of: avocados, dragon fruits, kiwis. All these were unheard of 10 years back. But then after our people have started putting them down, we find that they are growing very well. The yield is very good, and there is a big demand now for these fruits that are coming out from our state. So there is again a big opportunity for anyone who is interested to take up or to come and invest in the agri and horti sector in Nagaland. Then we have one last important agri produce that I just want to touch. That is the medicinal plants. So for many centuries, our local people have been using many herbs and plants to treat various sicknesses. Only now modern medicine is realizing that these herbal remedies are effective, and we have had inquiries for supply of medicinal plants. As this sector is still in its infancy, I see a big opportunity for everyone interested to pursue the activity. We have documented more than 100 species of plants which have medicinal value. Once again, I thank the organizers for this time of sharing. Yeah. And
Thank you.
Okay, just give me 20 seconds. So we,
All
at
right.
the Investment and Development Authority of Nagaland, we would welcome any queries for investing in our state. We will handhold you to set up your ventures. And there are so many other potential investable areas like tourism, health, small industries, education. But to talk about them, we would be intruding into the precious time of other speakers. So with this, I thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Kire. I think your focus was well placed. Agribusiness is something that can really go forward in the Northeast. And especially, I think if you focus on horticulture as you have suggested. Now, I would call upon Mr. Prabir Banerjee to give his presentation, to give a talk. 7 minutes, if possible.
Thank you. I'm timing myself.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to touch upon the whole tourism aspect of the Northeast, but I would like to redefine the Northeast as calling it the foothills or the part of the Eastern Himalaya. I am, for the time being, removing political barriers because, like our wildlife and our elephants move from state to state, from country to country without visas, I hope we could be able to do that at some point of time. I'm taking a cue from the previous speaker in the previous panel who talked about all strategy being based on trends and on endowments. So let's just look at the trends of the tourism industry. It is the fastest growing industry in terms of employment generation, livelihood creation, moving much faster than the GDP of most parts of the world. The multiplier effect of tourism is close to 7x as against a manufacture which is about 4. So that is the economic aspect of tourism. So the trend is that this is a growth sector and a growth engine. especially for places like the Eastern Himalaya. So what are endowments? Let's break it up. One is history. The Ahom dynasty is the longest serving dynasty in the history of the country, 100 years. This region was never conquered by the Mughals. This region has fought actively during the Second World War, and there are 2 world memorials in Imphal and Kohima. And there's a museum of the planes that went missing, the American planes in Arunachal, which was actually inaugurated by the US Ambassador Eric Garrity last year. That's the historical part. Oh, oldest refinery in the world outside the US is Digboy in Assam, 1901. The tea capital of India and probably half the world when it comes to black tea is the northeast of India. Not a lot of us know, but even places like Nagaland, Arunachal, Meghalaya are actively growing tea. Then we have, let's talk about biodiversity. There are 30 national parks in the region. There is a floating national park in the region. There are 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in the region. There are the big 5, 70% of the world's macrofungi or mushrooms are in the north. 60% of flora of the Eastern Himalayas are only in the north. I'm not looking at China right now. Then let's look at culture. There's a confluence of every religion in the world in the northeast, including Judaism, which exists in Mizoram. But there is only one God in the Eastern Himalayas. As per all the indigenous communities, the one God is Mother Nature. And the world survives because of the strength and the blessings of the sun and the moon. And there is no dowry. So that is, I'd like to keep it short, but all I'm saying is that tourism is a growth engine, is a growth driver for the Eastern Himalayan region. And by Eastern Himalayas, I actually mean from the snow line to the sea line. And Himsagar, maybe if you can call it. Himalaya means the abode of the snow, and Sagar is the oceans. So that reiterates from the sea line to the snow line. We've got a multitude of cultures. We've got over 200 indigenous communities. We are 3% of the country's population, but we speak 10% of the country's languages and dialects. So certainly let us promote tourism as long as it is aligned to the ecology and the cultural sensitivities of this place, and it is aligned to the uniqueness of the region. So we have culture, we have adventure, we have wildlife, we have religion, we have spirituality, if I may say so. We have riverine tourism, we have wildlife tourism, and we have no dowry. Once again, I say that because people are talking about gender equality. So thank you very much. And just one last point I would like to urge Rising Asia Foundation and all the members of the room here is please focus a little bit more on what we call the third pole. There are 46,000 glaciers in the Eastern Himalayan range. Half the world's population is dependent on this water supply source, and it is still a very poor cousin of the North Pole and the South Pole. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Praveen. You have actually, you had a minute or more to spare, but you seem to have covered all your points very well. Quite an impassioned sort of plea for giving tourism the pride of place in the Northeast. I tend to agree with you because I feel that ecology is a very, very important aspect of development in the Northeast. Unless we are able to preserve the ecology, there's no point going into any other forms of development. And
If I may, Prabhat, sorry, if I may just add, I'd just like to inform the August audience here that in our foundation, we've co-created a term called naturenomics, which is the interdependence between nature and economics, because we passionately believe that the future of this region and maybe for the rest of the world and the future of our rural population is based on the belief that ecology is actually economy. And the nature value and the valuation of nature is the way forward, and not the valuation the way we do it today, which is through the GDP. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. In the earlier session, Dev Mukherjee had talked about value rather than a return on investment. A return he talked about what kind of value your investment brings. But this is more specific. What you're talking about is more specific. So. The three speakers talked about the politics of investment and economy, talked about agribusiness, the potential for agribusiness, and you focused on tourism. Uh, I would like to ask the audience whether they have any questions to ask about speakers now. So
Yes,
over to the audience.
Mr. Besbarua, I am here. I can facilitate the question answers.
Please.
Kind of, you can ask, whatever the questions are asked, I will be able to facilitate that for you, and then the speakers
That
can
that
answer.
that would be useful. Otherwise, it's impossible for me to do it.
Yes, sir. So we have a question from Mr. Anirudh Lahiri.
Uh, First of all, I have a question to Mr. Kire. While you've given us a very warm invitation to come in the industry, to come and invest in Nagaland, and you've also assured us that the government will be holding hand till, as long as you need their help and so on and so forth. Now, there's one thing I wanted to ask you, which is that you not mention about the resources available there. What kind of resources? Are you talking about human capital, which was talked about the morning, that you have a lot of qualified people, you have, sort of specialist skills and that kind of thing, industry-wise or whatever. So unless and until you project your state as a state which has not only investment opportunities, but opportunities that can materialize because you have the resources to support, I think it will not quite gel. So would you like to mention any special resources or the quality of resources that you have?
Yeah, resources as such we have. We have not exploited them. Mineral resources we have got.
No, I'm talking about manpower resources.
Manpower,
skills.
yes, okay.
Yeah.
Manpower is, we have a very strong, youth that is very good in English. And in fact, they have been getting placements all over India, even abroad also, especially in the IT sector, BPO sector, in the services sector. That is what is happening.
Okay.
And we are open to any kind of investment. Anybody wants to come for any kind of investment, yes, we will.
So all these
do the
resources are
handholding.
available, but unfortunately they are not being tapped in Nagaland.
Yes.
Because they are all going out. They are migrating to other parts of India. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
So if there's an opportunity for them to be employed, then there are enough resources.
Yes,
and
they'll be
skills
great.
necessary for-
They'll be great to bring them back. In fact, many of them want to come back.
And one question, Sambit, one last question to Praveen. Praveen, you talked about tourism being developed. In fact, it's a paradise for tourism. And I can say that personally from my own personal experience. But if it is so, why is it not blossoming? Why is it not blooming, the tourism industry?
And I'll try.
Is it logistics? Is it
Logistics, I don't think so, because there are 16 airports in that region now. And at least for Assam, I know the road density per 100 kilometers is much higher than the national average. That is not there. I think one was the insurgency problem that happened since independence, if I may say so, which is far better now, except in pockets. Two is, I think, the focus of even the travel trade has always been the Delhi, Jaipur, Agras, Goas of the world. If you talk to a travel agent, he'll say, my business is down. Told him, have you looked at the Northeast? He said, no. I said, if you keep doing the same things over and over again, like somebody said, insanity. I just want to add one more point. If this region becomes a gateway of tourists to enter India or even to leave India, because the global surge of Indian tourists is very high now. If we get 1% of Thailand's tourist traffic, which is 30 million, 300,000, if they spend what, $100, 8,500 rupees a day, it amounts to about 260 crores. And if they come all the way and they spend 7 days, we are talking about 1,800 to 2,000 crores earnings in 7 days' time. And they can also come by road if they want to. It's 2,700 kilometers from Thailand via Mandalay, via Napito, via Imphal to the rest of the country. So that is the kind of numbers we are talking about.
Prabir, you should also mention that hotels in Guwahati are full. A few days back, when the Commerce Minister had come to Guwahati, I think 2 weeks back today, hotel rates were 22,000 rupees in Guwahati, which shows that there were absolutely no rooms available. Shillong, Meghalaya is a great success. All the hotels are full for most of the year, and during the season, the rates are quite abnormally high, if I may say so. So I think that a lot of infrastructure needs to be added as far as hotels are concerned. The only problem is that we want a certain class of tourists to come who will spend some money. You don't want people. I don't think that the focus of the Northeast should be on backpackers, because the low end of the tourist traffic causes a fair amount of ecological damage. Not as much as cement plants and logging operations, but nevertheless, we need to focus on a slightly better class of tourists, and I think that we will be able to do that in the future.
Okay,
We got to move away from coal, oil, timber.
we are really hard pressed for time. Actually, some of our next panelists have their time commitment somewhere else as well. So perhaps
So
we'll
we'll
close the session here.
The session is closed.
Yes.
And Sambit, we'll close the session, I think. And
Yes, we'll do
you
that.
go ahead and do the honors right away.
Yes, and thank
the
you.
mementos and all right away.
Yes, and thank you so much for being such a sport. In spite of your ill health, you could manage to be there virtually for a couple of sessions, and we kind of wish you all the very best, and you take care and get well soon, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so
I
much.
hope my neck becomes okay.
Yeah. So for doing the honors, since Mr. Bes Barua is not here, can I request Dr. Harish Mehta to please come up on the dais? Yeah, and can we first present the memento to Dr. Monish Torangbam? The applause should be louder. We are now having post-lunch. Mr. David Kire. And Mr. Probir Banerjee. All right, thank you. Can we have a joint photograph together?